After months of what felt like hopeless waiting, Truong suddenly appeared just when Tieu was still carrying his child. The moment left everyone speechless. Where had he been all this time? Why did he vanish, leaving her to face everything alone, bearing the weight, the silence, the long, empty nights? But what shocked everyone even more was the truth behind Truong's disappearance. He returned with tired eyes, carrying a story he could barely bring himself to tell about the days trapped between life and death, and the mysterious person who saved him. But what was the price of that salvation? Today, all the secrets will finally be revealed about love, loyalty, and a faith that never faded. Don't take your eyes off the screen, and make sure to like and subscribe to uncover the truth behind Truong's return and the tears of Tieu. Truong was found lying by a cold dirt road where the mist covered rows of wild trees and the damp smell of earth hung in the air. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious, only the burning pain in his shoulder and a soft, unfamiliar voice echoing through the haze, low, calm, strangely warm. When he opened his eyes, he realized he was lying inside an old wooden house. A faded curtain hung over the window. The woman, thin silver strands in her hair, gentle face lined with age, was sitting by a basin of cold water, washing a blood-stained cloth. Her eyes were kind but deep, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and feared nothing anymore. He tried to move, but pain clouded his head. She glanced over, then quietly pulled the thin blanket up over his chest. Not a word. From that day on, Truong stayed in that house. It was tucked deep in the mountain's forest, at its back, a small stream running in front. Each morning, the sound of a wooden pestle pounding bananas mixed with roosters crowing. He grew stronger, but inside questions piled up. The woman never said much, always repeating the same few lines. Eat, rest, don't work too hard. Whenever he tried to ask who she was or why she'd helped him, she would just smile softly and disappear into the back of the house. At first, Truong thought he had stumbled into the home of a kind stranger, but the longer he stayed, the more uneasy he became. Her words began to sound like habit, like something rehearsed. Her actions offering medicine to someone unseen, tending to chores on a fixed schedule, felt too precise, almost mechanical. Every night he heard footsteps pacing outside, steady and rhythmic, always at the same hour. When he opened the door, there was nothing, just moonlight spilling over the yard. One night, he followed her out back. In the dim glow of an oil lamp, she sat talking to herself. Before her stood an old altar covered in dust. On it was a faded photo of a young man, about Truong's age. The face was blurred with time, but those eyes were hauntingly familiar. They looked just like his. Truong froze, his heart pounding. In that instant, he understood why she looked at him, the way she did, with tenderness, yet with a distance that pierced. She wasn't really seeing him. She was seeing through him, seeing someone else who once filled that space. That night, Truong couldn't sleep. Flashes of memory blurred together, rain, the screech of brakes, a crash, and the sound of a woman screaming her son's name. He didn't know if it was his own memory or someone else's bleeding into his mind from another life. He stayed on. He worked in the garden, chopped wood, planted vegetables. Everything seemed already mapped out. She still called him son, still reminded him to drink water to rest. For the first time, Truong wanted to resist to tell her he wasn't her boy. But when he met her eyes filled with so much love and loss, the words died in his throat. A part of him wanted to believe, wanted to stay in that fragile illusion, even knowing it wasn't real. Because in the harsh world he came from, no one had ever called him son with that trembling voice before. At night, the rain would fall again. He would hear her softly singing in the kitchen, her rough, broken voice strangely soothing, as if time had stopped mattering. He'd walk out and see her sitting alone, staring into nothing. On the table was a bowl of warm medicine and an old yellowed paper. He picked it up. A prescription with another man's name. The name from the photo. At the bottom, written in a slanted hand, "I'll come home soon, Mom. Don't wait up." Truong's hands trembled. He finally understood. The son in that photo had died years ago, but she had never accepted it. Every day, she lived inside that same loop, believing her boy had just gone away for a while and would walk through the door any moment. And when Truong appeared with the same frame, the same scar, she believed the miracle had come. The next morning, she woke earlier than usual. She cooked breakfast, made the medicine set the table. When Truong got up, everything was ready. She sat there with a calm smile, her hands trembling slightly. He wanted to tell her the truth, but the words wouldn't come. He didn't want to break the dream. In that dream, she still had hope, and he lost, and Hollow finally had a home. They ate in silence. Sunlight slipped through the roof, falling over the little garden where the flowers had just begun to bloom. The stream outside murmured softly, like time passing in secret. In the days that followed, the house seemed livelier. She talked about fixing things, painting doors, planting new trees. She wanted to buy more flower pots, pound bananas for the geese. They worked together slow and gentle, as if afraid to wake a sleeping memory. He began calling her Mom. At first it felt strange, then natural, then real, but peace never lasts. One afternoon, while chopping wood, Truong heard voices at the gate. It was a search team. They said they'd been following his trail since the accident. "Are you Truong, the man who went missing weeks ago?" they asked. He froze. The woman stepped out. She looked at the strangers, then back at him, her eyes suddenly uncertain. The air went heavy. Truong wanted to speak to explain, but fear clenched his throat. He knew that if he said a word, she would understand. She just smiled faintly. "I'll make some tea," she said, and walked back inside. When the rescuers led Truong away, he turned back. Through the window, he could still see her sitting by the table, hands resting on the bowl of cold medicine. She wasn't crying. Her lips moved soundlessly, repeating the same words. "Rest, don't work too hard, my son." Truong left that house, but the image stayed. In the nights that followed, he dreamt of returning to the stream. The house was still there, but empty. The door half open, the photo still on the altar, a bowl of medicine dried to dust. He wondered, had he stepped into the world of a mother who couldn't accept her loss? Or had he, a man, wandering the edge of life and death, been guided there to understand a loneliness beyond words? Days later, news came. The wooden house had burned down. A candle overturned in the night. No one survived. But in the ashes, they found a new photo, Truong's placed beside the old one. Beneath it, a line written in shaky ink. "You came home. I've waited long enough." Truong never went to the funeral. He stood across the stream, watching white smoke rise and blend into the clouds. Inside him was something that hurt and soothed all at once. He didn't know if he had lost something or been given something sacred, the love of a mother, even if it only existed in her final dream. And from that day on, every time he heard someone say the word mom, he would bow his head quietly, as if to keep that gentle voice alive in his heart, the voice that once saved a lost soul in a house where the line between dream and reality finally disappeared. In the morning, Tieu stepped out of the house, her feet lightly brushing against the soft green grass as she headed towards the garden behind. Today, Tieu decided to pick some papayas to sell. She reached up to grab a ripe one, feeling the smooth skin of the fruit under her hand. But as soon as she lifted it, something strange happened. Tieu felt an odd sensation as she picked the papaya. She held it in her hand, but as the smell of it hit her nose, she felt nauseous. The taste of the papaya today was different from usual, making her feel uncomfortable, as though something in her body was reacting. Her mouth tasted bitter, and she couldn't swallow. All she felt was a strange, bland taste. She wondered if the papaya had ripened too much, or if it was even starting to rot. Unable to bear it, she set the papaya aside, panting, looking around. Everything suddenly seemed blurry. She thought to herself, "I'll just leave it here for the birds." But the discomfort wouldn't go away. Her whole body felt heavy, drained of energy. Dizziness and fatigue overwhelmed her, and she didn't know what was happening to her. She sat down by a nearby tree, hugging her knees, feeling the anxiety spread through her body. Her worries about her health grew stronger, and Tieu couldn't understand why she felt this way. Despite the overwhelming exhaustion, Tieu forced herself to carry the basket of papayas to the market, even though her body seemed to resist every step. Each time she lifted the basket, her body ached, but she couldn't stop. The fatigue and nausea felt like a huge wave crashing over her, pulling her under, not giving her a moment's peace. She felt as though an invisible weight was pressing on her chest, making each breath heavy and difficult. But no matter what, she had to keep going, had to take the papayas to the market, because she still had to make money to take care of Tieu and manage the daily expenses of life. She knew she couldn't give up, even though her body was fighting her every step of the way. "I have to keep going. I can't give up," Tieu told herself, even though her mind was spinning from the exhaustion. She looked at the papayas in her basket. They were still fresh and ripe, but in her eyes, everything seemed dull and lifeless. The sweet scent of the papayas wasn't the same today. The strange feeling in her body was growing more intense, making it impossible to control her emotions. A fleeting thought crossed her mind. Could she be pregnant with Truong's child? She couldn't explain the changes in her body, but this sensation felt like a sign she'd never experienced before. It was a strange feeling, sweet, yet full of anxiety. She didn't dare to dwell on it for too long, because she still had to focus on her life, on caring for Tieu and managing the daily costs. Even though she was exhausted, Tieu couldn't stop. But her heart wouldn't allow her to give up. She had to earn money, had to take care of Tieu, and that was the only thing on her mind right now. She looked at the customers, trying to force a smile, though her heart was filled with worry and fatigue. Every smile took double the effort, but she couldn't let anyone know what she was feeling inside. In those moments, Truong appeared in her mind, his image like a beacon in the darkness, making her heart ache with longing. She wished he would come back so they could continue their unfinished plans, but for now, Tieu had to keep going alone. The longing for him and the pain in her body clung to her, but all she could do was keep moving, walking alone in her exhaustion, with worry constantly weighing on her heart. After selling all the papayas, Tieu felt a small sense of relief, though her body still felt tired and heavy. She knew that at least for today, she'd made enough money to take care of Dewey. But she couldn't rest for long, because she still had to prepare a meal for her son. Dewey was waiting for her at home, and today she decided to buy some meat to cook porridge for him. Tieu walked to a meat stall in the market, trying to focus on shopping, despite her body constantly protesting with every step. She looked at the fresh cuts of meat, the fatigue still clinging to her, but her love for Dewey kept her going. She picked a piece of meat, but found herself unable to hold it firmly. Her hand was trembling slightly. At that moment, a vendor reached out, offering to help Tieu choose the meat. She could feel the kindness in the vendor's eyes, but the dizziness wouldn't stop making everything around her feel blurry and distant. Her vision blurred, and the dizziness hit her again. She struggled to steady herself, but the headache made it feel like everything was about to collapse. She tried to push the discomfort away and gently asked the vendor for a piece of meat, just enough to make porridge for Dewey. When she heard the price, she quietly took out her wallet, suddenly realizing how exhausted she was, her hands shaking as she handed over the money. After a moment, Tieu asked the vendor to help her pack the meat. She could feel the vendor's gentle touch, but her mind kept circling around one question. Can I keep going? Tieu took the bundle of meat, stepping away from the stall, her eyes following her weary steps. Worries about her health, Truong's absence, and Dewey's future filled her mind with confusion. Though she tried not to let herself collapse, the dizziness still clung to her, and with each step, her body felt heavier. Tieu walked into the house, her body exhausted, but her mind still full of worry. When she smelled the food, she felt nauseous. This discomfort was different from usual, leaving her confused. She wondered, why does the food smell so off today? Why do I feel so disgusted by it? But what made her even more confused was the thought that suddenly crossed her mind. She realized she was late for her period, and a vague sense of fear rose within her. Could I be pregnant with Truong's child? That question kept repeating in her mind, adding to her stress. Although it wasn't clear yet, the heaviness in her body made it impossible not to think about the possibility. The nausea didn't go away, and she told herself that she needed to see a doctor. I can't let this continue. If I really am pregnant, I need to know for sure. Tieu thought. She worried about the future, about Dewey, and whether she would have the strength to take care of both children. Despite her exhaustion, Tieu decided not to stop. She quickly stepped outside, planning to stop by the pharmacy before picking up Dewey. The worry about her health and the future kept nagging at her. It's still early. Hal probably hasn't finished work yet. I'll stop by the pharmacy and then go pick up Dewey. she thought. But she couldn't stop thinking about the uncertainty in her mind. Tieu walked with a heavy heart, each step feeling like a challenge. The strange sensation in her body haunted her. Could she really be pregnant with Truong's child? She didn't know what to do, but one thing was certain: her life would never be the same again. Worries about her health, Dewey's future, and what she would do if she really was pregnant slowly took over her mind. Everything felt unclear, but one thing she knew was that she couldn't just give up. Dewey needed her, and Truong had always been a part of her life, no matter where he was. Tieu knew that no matter what the future held, she had to be strong to face it all. So what would Tieu do next? Could she uncover the truth about this strange feeling? And would a miracle really happen in her life? Stay tuned for the next chapter of Tieu's challenging and hopeful journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the next video to find out how she overcomes these hardships.